Yo, 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 what's up? 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 What's good, everybody? It's been a minute since I even spoke to y'all about like even hoop matters. So, you know what I mean? First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that's been even listening to the wrestling podcast. I got my boy Playboy Troy, the We're WrestleManiacs 2 podcast. Again, thank you to everybody that listens to that and get those views up. And I appreciate that so much. But today want to talk Warriors. The season is on its way. It's not quite here yet, but we did get the release of the NBA schedule. So that's pretty much why I'm here today. Let's talk about this NBA schedule that they released. What was it, on Thursday of this past week that just left? So I want to dive into that and talk to you and just have some discussions about the Warriors schedule. I want to discuss they got some veterans, so let's say some roster moves or some roster things that has happened since the last time I talked to y'all. It's been since at least May. That I think so. It's been a few months, like at least 3-4 months since we even spoke about basketball. So want to speak on some roster moves. The biggest move of all, the Chris Paul being brought to the Warriors and traded for Jordan Poole. And right now, kind of on my TV screen, the NBA TV is on right now, and it's the Warriors versus the Clippers from last NBA season, or this past NBA season, where Curry goes for like 50 something. It was Curry flurry, but Jordan Poole hit some big shots in this game, and I was just like, damn, that's when it kind of started to click with me, like we gonna really miss him, man, since he's gonna be gone. But in any event, still let's talk Warriors. So let's talk about the schedule a little bit. The NBA schedule is here. The actual regular season it does start on Tuesday, October 24th. It's going to start against the Phoenix Suns. It's going to be a TNT game. So that's going to be a very, very big game, especially to start the season off. A lot of road games to start the season as well. Real top heavy and bottom heavy as well when it comes to road games. But again, back to the opening game of the season. So before we get to that, there are 5 preseason games, which would be 2 against the Lakers, 2 against the Kings, 1 against the Spurs. And that will be from October 7th, I believe, all the way to October 20th, between those dates, those couple weeks. But again, starting off the season against the Phoenix Suns, man, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Eric Gordon. Let's see what Bobo is going to be able to do with this squad. He might not be as pigeonholed as he has been with the other squads. And maybe he might start to take this a little bit more serious. And be able to display the talent that he has. I always thought that Bobo was a very talented player. Not even just because of his height. The height. I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. I've been a Warrior fan since 91. But around that time, Manute Bol was playing for the Warriors. I believe it was really actually the 89-90 season, the year before I actually really started getting into basketball. But still, we had Manute Bol on our team, so I was already familiar with Bobo's father. So that's what kind of made me even give him a chance. And I believe he was playing in college, seen some of his games there. And then when he came into the NBA, had a couple of pit stops. One for sure was in Orlando. So, well, again, we'll see how he plays in Phoenix. But just to have the Warriors season start off against the Phoenix Suns, and everybody always says, because especially for the past 2 years, it's been like the Warriors versus the Suns. They're bound to meet up in the playoffs, but haven't seen each other at all in the playoffs the past 2 seasons where they both were good and relevant. So to see this and people still think that maybe these 2 teams might have to face each other again to get to a championship, it's a very quick, let's say, testing point for the Warriors roster, for the way that it's currently constructed right now. But to have them go against Phoenix, I think is going to be a big test. But I think it's going to be a test that they're going to get done. It's going to be in Chase Center. It will be Kevin Durant's first game with fans in attendance at Chase Center. And remember, he was at Chase Center his last year with the Warriors, or second to last year with the Warriors, when they were actually building and constructing it. And he was there with the hard hat on and everything, checking out the site. So this will be his first time. So first time back in that arena with fans. So it's going to be nice. It's been 4 years since he's been gone. So maybe they'll give they should give him some type of a little tribute package or whatever before the game starts. But again, I think that's going to be a very fun game for game number one. And we always get one of those tough games like that for game number one. They're never good games really because everybody's still kind of working out the kinks of their game. So, you know, it's still going to be a very entertaining game nonetheless. So the Phoenix Suns, October 24th, Tuesday, 7 o'clock Western time. Pacific Standard Time, if you will, on TNT. Their second game of the season will be, of course, against the Sacramento Kings. With it being, I believe, the most viewed playoff game of last season, you already know that game was going to be it. And I actually thought that was going to be the first game of the season. Just knowing how the NBA likes to play and start the next season with big matchups that kind of ended the previous season. So that's why I kind of believed that maybe that it was going to be Sacramento to start it off. But they get the second game of the season. And then after that, it's going to be the Houston Rockets on October 29th, which will be a Sunday. And that actually, going back to the Sacramento game, it's actually going to be a road game. So it's going to be already the first 3-game road trip to start off the season after the Phoenix game. It's going to be Sacramento, Houston, and then New Orleans to open up the season. And then you're going to go back home to see Sacramento again. And then after that, you're back on the road again for a 4-game trip against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Detroit Pistons, and the Denver Nuggets. So out of this schedule right here, I do not think it's going to be one of those dire type of schedules, but I absolutely believe the Warriors can hit the ground, start off and hit the ground running. I do not think this team will have the same road woes that it had the previous year, which was last season. As I'm watching the Clippers game, which we lost that game, but I don't think they're going to have the same road woes as we did last season. So I don't see them, especially with the teams that are on this slate. I mean, Sacramento's a good team, but then you have Houston who did kind of reload with Fred VanVleet and adding Dylan Brooks and then getting Jeff Green. So they did kind of reload a bit as well. They did get a big too, but I don't even remember who the big was. But and then you got New Orleans, then you got Oklahoma City. Cleveland's a good team to play, but we beat Cleveland last year. So not one of those teams that you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be one of those nights. Then you have Detroit, and then you end with the defending champions, the Denver Nuggets, and Denver, which that game, since it's a 4-gamer, they might only play the young guys in that game. So I could see them really kind of starting off, maybe only losing 2 games of the first 10, maybe. So that's just my prediction and the way I see it with the schedule. And knowing that they have Chris Paul. Chris Paul has never been a part of a losing team. And I don't see it starting now, especially a team that loses a lot of road games. You don't see it. You won't see a lot of turnovers occur with this team as well. But we'll dive into that later on with the Chris Paul impact. And then we get a couple in this season of baseball style of games. We get 2 games against Minnesota in a row. Then after that, we get 2 games against Oklahoma City in a row. These are pretty much the 4 games from November 12th to November 18th. So 2 against Minnesota, 2 against Oklahoma City. And then later on, which a couple weeks later, you get 2 against the Clippers. And then it's another one in here as well before they dive into the big tournament, the in-season tournament that I kind of I'm in favor of. It's San Antonio. So San Antonio would be the other team that will be in the baseball style matches where there's 2 games in a row. But again, I see the Warriors doing pretty good with these games. The way that the season was constructed at the early going. But for me, I think the 15 back-to-backs with an older team, I think the average age might be around 30-something, 30, 31, 32 years of age for this team as the average age, which would be the oldest team in the league. And, to have 15 back-to-backs, it might be a little weighing on their bodies if they were to play them on all those back-to-backs. I don't think they're going to probably play all the back-to-backs. I do believe there will be some games that will be Moody, Kuminga, maybe even Podziemski, the rookie, Trace Jackson, Davis, and and Corey Joseph. I think we might get a couple of those games this season, a few of those back to backs. But I think those back to backs might be a little bump in the road for them. Again, for them being an older team. But the part that I see that might be the biggest problem for the Golden State Warriors in this schedule will probably be starting January 12th in Chicago. Um, it's a 4-game road trip, and the 4 teams are the Chicago Bulls, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Memphis Grizzlies on Martin Luther King Day, and then you get the Utah Jazz to end off that trip. You come back home, and then you face the Dallas Mavericks, Atlanta, Sacramento, the Lakers, the Sixers. Then you go back on the road again for 5 games, and then you face Memphis again, Atlanta, which we really haven't beaten Atlanta in a while. So I already kind of have that penciled in as a loss. Brooklyn, Philly, Indiana, come back home, and then you face the Phoenix Suns. I mean, that is grueling if you talk about pretty much a 30-day gauntlet, if you will. And this is after the in-season tournament. So this is pretty much after the new year has started for 2024. Just that part of the schedule is daunting alone. But then once you're done with that, you kind of get a little bit of a low. You get a few road trips in there, but then you come to this big 7-game whopper towards the end of the season, which starts on March 24th. They go to Minnesota, and then they face the Miami Heat. Then they go to Orlando, go back up to Charlotte, go back down to San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. Then they come back home for a game against the Utah Jazz, go back on the road against the Lakers in Portland to pretty much end the season with the last 2 games against New Orleans and Utah. Crazy just to end the season, and a big portion of 2024 that starts off that are just 2 big, huge obstacles for the Warriors to try to overcome, and hopefully without any major injuries to the team. So that's a part of the schedule where I think it could be a part that kicks their ass, but that's why I believe so heavily that they are going to win a lot of those games at the beginning of the season. I really do. I really have faith that, and just not even faith, that just looking at the schedule, I really do believe that these guys will win a lot of this beginning part of the season up until that, at least until the new year. At least until the new year. I don't expect big lull games like they had last year, like the Detroit game that they lost. There's an Orlando game that they lost. I don't think we're going to really have those type of lulls this season. There's going to be some that are surprise losses, but because that comes with every NBA season. But I don't think it's going to be as many as it was last year. And I don't think it's going to be as horrible on the road as they were last year. I contend that they're going to be a winning team on the road. They're going to have a winning road record. Whether it's going to be over 500, put it like that. That's what I truly believe. But that part right there is grueling. But for me, I believe I did this a couple of days ago. I hope I got the math right. So the projections for the Warriors this year are for them to win around 48 to 49 games. This was on ESPN. For me, I'm going at the 54 wins. I'm going with 54 to 57 wins. I'm very confident to the 57 wins. Whether Chris Paul starts, whether Chris Paul comes off the bench, I'm very confident at the 57 wins. The championship part, I'm very close to confident, but I'm not quite there yet. I have to see the product on the floor to be able to fully judge if they're that type of team. I was able to judge the 2021-22 season. It was really pretty much 4 games in, and I was like, oh, yeah, they're gonna fucking do it. And this is during, I believe, the 3rd game of the season where I was thinking this, and it was really based off of Otto Porter Jr. and the way that he played that really kind of had me like, oh. And then Damian Lee at the time was playing very well as well. He was playing very good as well. So that would kind of have me like, oh, okay. And Clay still got to come back. Jordan Poole has elevated to this level. They might win chip. They might win chip. And then coming to the end of the season, after they faced the Boston Celtics, they won chips. So not saying that I'm some type of Nostradamus or anything like that, but just usually when I have those type of feelings, they be very, very close to being right. So again, my projections is 57 wins, the low side 54 for me. That's just really how low I'm gonna go. I have I have high expectations for this team, but 54 wins. But that's just um my perspective of it. And so moving on, I don't want to really be here all day, talking you guys' ear off. So that was the schedule part. But as we move on, I want to talk about the roster. The roster kind of got it got better in my eyes. It really, really did. The roster really got better because I look at it as, even though I hate to see Jordan Poole go, and I know I was the guy, maybe the season finale with all the frustrations that I had when I did that podcast. I was very frustrated at what was going on with the coaching staff and how they were treating the youngsters and how the youngsters were pretty much acting in a way after being treated the way they were. So not that it was any fault of their own, I just didn't see where there could be a common ground that was met. I'm not gonna really try to go in here and really explain. I'm gonna stand on what I said. I just thought that it was gonna be time for somebody to go, and it actually happened. And then I was thinking too, and this was right after, or really during the time I did the podcast. I don't know if I said it on there. I might have, but I know right after I was talking to someone, and I was like, it'd just be so crazy if the Warriors got Chris Paul. And I was like, you know what? I bet you they get Chris Paul. And I just kept checking my Bleacher Report every other day, every other day, every other day. And then finally the news pops up that Chris Paul was traded to the Washington Wizards. And I was like, oh, he's not going to stay there. They're going to waive him. The Warriors is going to get Chris Paul. And I'm thinking they're going to get him on the waiver wire, get him for a vet minimum after he's released somehow or waived from the Washington Wizards. But they end up trading Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, which is, I know, old news, but still was a shocker when it happened. But it was something I felt like I called already. I don't want to toot my own horn or nothing like that, but I just was like, damn, I've always, sorry, I hit the mic. I grew up a Chris Paul fan. So I always really wanted to see him on my favorite team, but it was just so much of a rivalry that was going on between those Clipper teams with the Warriors and those Rocket teams with the Warriors that it was like, yeah, probably would never happen. But it actually ended up happening this season. So I'm pretty happy about it. Now, the whole talk is about whether he's going to be a starter or he's going to be a six man. To me, as of right now, I think it really doesn't matter. But I think to start the season, he's going to be a starter. No matter how people are going to feel about it. The way that his ego is, the way that even, I know people say that Steve Kerr don't like to change his rotations, but when there's a star that comes in, he changed his rotation when Kevin Durant came in and Harrison Barnes left. So it really didn't change it then, but Harrison Barnes left. So I don't know. Not gonna sit here and act like I know. Like what Chris Paul said to Kendra Andrews that day, are you the coach? I'm not the coach, so I really don't know. But I see that there's gonna be some games where he starts, and these are gonna be games with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and possibly Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green. I probably would do it a little different. People would probably slander me. I was slandered on actually Bleacher Report for saying this, but I would find a way to start Dario Saric and Draymond Green together to go with Chris Paul and Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, of course. Because it just the way to have a big on the floor, and whether Saric is defensive or not, whether Chris Paul is a stoic on the defensive end like he kind of used to be or not, it still gives you veteran presence, and it gives you a stretch big on the floor who could be able, again, to stretch the floor. Let Draymond play the defensive anchor like he usually does. And I think that you could get away with like a slightly better version of Bielitsa with Sarge. So that's what I think. But, again, it's up to Steve Kerr and his coaching staff for that. So as far as his impact, I think his impact is going to be positive. I don't see too much negative part, except for maybe if he does not really want to come off the bench, and that becomes a big thing with the fans and with the the front office and with him. But whether or not I think he's going to be a very big asset to not only Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, I think he's going to be a big asset to Jonathan Kaminga, to Moses Moody, the pick and rolls with Trace Jackson Davis. Like, and I seen that kid in summer league, and if he really had someone who knew how to play pick and roll, he's gonna be nice, and that's gonna be a. I think he's gonna be a sleeper pick once the season starts. They signed him to a 4-year deal, which makes me believe he's going to get playing time. He's going to be the second or third big to come off that bench. And that's why they haven't really went out there and looked for a big dynamic big to go along with Draymond and Looney. I think they see that in Trace Jackson Davis, which I I don't disagree. Not the biggest shot blocker or shot rejector in that way, but he gets them. And it usually be from the weak side, but he gets them. So I see him being a big, big asset as far as Chris Paul to a lot of the young guys that they have on the team. Even to try some pick and rolls with Loon. Loon is no scrub. Loon just is great at his fucking role. If you ask me. And that's because Loon used to be an All-American. Loon was what all Milwaukee. So yeah, Loon has other skills besides just being an offensive rebounder and a putback guy. So I think that there could be some pick and roll as well there with Loon and Chris Paul, and then maybe some pick and pops with Steph and Clay. So again, and what I think as well is it's going to help Jonathan Kaminga become maybe a 12 to 15 points per guy. I mean, points per game guy. That's what I believe. So the impact Chris Paul is going to have is going to be, man, it's going to be something very impactful. The Warriors also did sign again, like I spoke on, Dario Saric, who was a running mate for Chris Paul in Phoenix before he was traded to Oklahoma City. 6'9", power forward / center who can stretch the floor, shoot threes. They also signed Corey Joseph as a good backup. Always been a solid backup guy. Is Corey Joseph. Been a solid backup for Detroit for the past, 3 years, 4 years maybe. Now he gets to come in and be the third or maybe even fourth guard if Chris Paul comes off the bench. Might not get a lot of playing time, but you have a solid backup if anything was to happen with Steph, Clay, Chris Paul, or really that's it for as far as your guards because JP's gone. And then again the adding of Trace Jackson Davis and then the new rookie Brandon Pajemski, who did not really have the best summer league performance, but you could tell that he could be a guy that could get you other things besides points. He could be a guy that can get you 10 assists, a guy that can get you 10 rebounds. Like this kid was out there, he's only 6'3", 6'2", and he was out there getting 10 rebounds in summer league. His jumper and his offensive game wasn't the best, but his utilities and his hustle game, he's gonna be decent. But I believe they're gonna have him go down to Santa Cruz and have him play a lot in Santa Cruz this season. Basically with that. As far as signings, and then Draymond signed his big contract, which we already kind of knew was going to happen. But with Draymond signing his contract, meaning that we had to kind of say bye-bye to Jordan Poole. Kind of, it's kind of sad in a way. But at the end of the day, I think that Jordan Poole is going to be missed. I think that Jordan Poole is going to be phenomenal for the Washington Wizards. I think he's going to average 26 to 27 points per game, if not 30. If not 30, it will be between 26 and 27 points per game. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch, even though they might not win a lot of games. It's going to kind of remind you of like the 2010, 2011 Warriors, where they were pretty fun, or 2011, 2012 Warriors before Monte got traded. A very fun team to watch. But you knew they weren't going to win a lot of games. And I think that that's what's going to be the Washington Wizards. They now have Patrick Baldwin Jr., who we traded over there in the Jordan Poole deal, or kind of separate from the Jordan Poole deal, but it got us Trace Jackson Davis. Then Ryan Rollins went over there, which I didn't really see anything in Ryan Rollins, so I wish him the best as well. But didn't really see too much in Ryan Rollins. So when he was a part of the deal, you kind of knew that was coming because Patrick Baldwin was a part of the deal, so you thought they would get rid of all three of those youngsters. But again, and I want to give respect to Jordan Poole for the way he handled the punch situation. Never really spoke on it. always was kind of a little passive, but in this kind of profession, you have to be sometimes because people feel like that you're either too sensitive or you take things a certain way if you keep feeding into it, or they look at you as negative. So the way that he went about that was very positive, very professional, and give him kudos. I believe, and I'm just gonna put it on this podcast, not saying it's gonna happen because it probably won't, but I believe he'll be a Warrior again. When? Could be in 3 years when Draymond's gone. Steph could still be playing. Never know. But I do believe that he'll be a Warrior again, off top. Um, but again, only time will tell. The last thing was the workouts. So the Warriors had did some workouts with some veteran guys to see if they want to possibly use the 14th or 15th roster spot on these guys, or even maybe use them as camp invites for summer for training camp. So name off the name of guys, and then I'll give you my opinion if possibly they anybody on this list to maybe even keep, if any. But so the first person, Glenn Robinson III, who was a former Warrior back in the pandemic season, or right when the pandemic started, so the 2019-2020 season. Pretty decent 3-point shooter, very decent, very serviceable on the defensive end. He was a pretty solid player for us. He started a lot of games for us. I think he ultimately got traded to Detroit during that year, but he was very solid hand for us that year when we didn't have anybody but D'Angelo Russell, Jordan Poole, Eric Pascal that year. He was kind of a very big help for that squad. So yeah, Glenn Robinson III. Would you say Glenn Robinson III? Then there's Harry Giles, who previously that I remember playing with the Sacramento Kings. If there's another team, I do apologize. But 6'11", 6'10", big man. Didn't really get to show as much what he was about in the Sacramento regime that they had at the time before Mike Brown had got there. We'll see. But if you always want an extra big man, maybe a third big man, could be something that you can look at. Michael Carter Williams, who the last that I remember playing was for the Orlando Magic. But what is this, about 6'7", point guard, tall kid. Kind of reminds you of a Sean Livingston type of point guard in a way. But he doesn't have that jumper. He doesn't have a shot really at all. Unless he's developed one over the last, year and a half that he's been out the league. That would be absolutely be a no-go for me. But you never know what the front office is looking for. But we have Juan Toscano-Henderson, who last year played for the Los Angeles Lakers and then was traded to the Utah Jazz. And then he was waived after that. Me, former Warrior, he was a champion with our 2021-2022 team, came to our team during the pandemic. Because I remember him and Damian Lee was in Chase Center and they were playing 2K on the big screen. I'll say what I have to say about him later. Trey Burke, who was a sharpshooter for Dallas the last time I remember. If it was another team, sorry, but he's kind of been out the league the last year or so. 6'1", 6'2" point guard, but streaky shooter. But he can give you that type of offense that maybe that you're missing from Jordan Poole, as far as if you just need a basket, you go to Trey Burke. Now, Dion Waiters is the last name on this list. Dion Waiters. Yeah, Dion Waiters. Never his talent was never really in question when he played for the Cavaliers or even the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was always his attitude and how he was perceived around the league. I don't think that that's going to be a guy that they're going to lean towards at all to give a contract. And so really, basically, after all those names that I've given you, the only one that I would bring in, or let's say bring back, is Juan Toscano-Anderson. Juan Toscano-Anderson, I think, can give you the utility things that we're now not going to have, for sure, that we're not going to have with Andre Iguodala being gone, retired. He can give you those things. Being able to, because I was watching the game from last season. Actually, it was the Laker game where LeBron went crazy. Juan Toscano-Anderson knows where to be, especially with this squad. He makes the extra pass. He doesn't always take the shot, which can kind of hamper you a bit if you're playing like him and Draymond at the same time. But that's why they kind of would have to be maybe interchangeable, or you play him at the three, either or. But I think Juan Toscano Anderson would be the only guy on this list that would be a fit. I think he's really the only other guy to bring in, especially if you're looking to have a veteran core and people who knows what you're doing. And we're looking to change the locker room and to get the locker room to be on a positive side. He was one of those guys in that locker room for the past 3 years that kept them positive, that kept everything intact, even though he wasn't one of the best players on the team. So all in all, I would bring back Juan Toscano Anderson in a capacity where he can play. Not saying he's going to get big minutes. I wouldn't promise him big minutes. Even if it's signed to a two-way deal where he plays a couple games with Santa Cruz, I probably wouldn't do him like that. I'd probably just sign him to the vet minimum, and he'd probably be one of the end of the bench guys, but he'll still be a great energy guy off the bench. Another guy too. Sorry about that. There was another former Warrior. Kent Bazemore was another guy that they had brought in as well for a workout. I'm not sold on the Kent Bazemore thing. We tried this thing twice, and every time we did not make the playoffs that we had Kent Bazemore. So I don't know if there's something there with that, but I don't want to risk it, especially right now, and we're kind of hitting the twilight of Steph's years. I mean, well, now we're not. We're not in the twilight, but we're heading towards the downside of Steph's playing career. Let's just say that. Because he's not going to go up. If he does it, this guy's fucking even more amazing than we even say he is. If he just keeps going up at 35, 36, like that'd be really, really nuts. But at the end of the day, I think all in all with this team, bring back in Juan Toscano Anderson, maybe sign Guy Santos, who had a pretty good summer league, sign him to the second two-way contract. So him and Lester Quinones would be your two-way guys. Get JTA on that roster. Maybe just keep the 15th spot open for a buyout later on in the season, or if somebody comes over from China, or things like that. So you might want to just keep the 15th one open, but the 14th one just give it to JTA. Still a big body, around 6'7", 6'8". He still can give you great minutes, and again can possibly play the Andre Iguodala role that you might need to help you succeed during some games during the regular season, not really the playoffs, but just the regular season, especially when Steph might not play a couple games, when Draymond might not, just say when the big three might not play. You have guys like that. So again, I think this team, barring any crazy injuries, I think this team is a 57-win team. I think Chris Paul starts the season as a starter. I think as the season progresses and wanes, he gets more convinced to come off the bench, and this Warrior team hits the ground running. Do I think that we're a better team than we were last year? In my mind, yes. On paper, yes. We'll just have to see it on the floor. We have to see it on the TV or on the hardwood to be able to really just say yes or no. But in my mind, yes, this is a better team than last year. I think they're going to be better connected. I think they're older guys who know what the mission is. I don't think that there's nobody really on here playing for another big, gigantic contract. Maybe Clay. But besides that, there's nobody really on here playing for another big contract. Oh, maybe Jonathan Kuminga too. So maybe two guys. So I take that back. But I don't think there's going to be really as much egos driven in this run for a title than it was last year. It just was so many things, bumps in the road, even besides the punch. Because again, there's some guys that are no longer here anymore on this Warrior team as part of the front office, part of the coaching staff, part of the players, what have you. So it was more than just the punch. So I'll be honest about that. But again, I've been on here for 30 minutes now, just talking. So because it's been a long time since I was able to, do this and talk to you guys about Warrior stuff. But all in all, 57 wins, 54, 57 wins, 54, 57 wins. One of those two or in between. That's what we're going for. That's what we're shooting for. That's what the expectations from me are. And we'll see come October 24th when the season starts at Chase Center against the Phoenix Suns. Again, I want to thank all you guys for being able to be here today. All you guys for listening to the Real WrestleManiacs podcast with me and Playboy Troy. It comes out every Friday. We record every Wednesday, but got to get everything going and everything pushed out. And get the levels and all that right, all that type of stuff. So we're WrestleManiacs 2 podcast every Friday, and we will start back with doing this again, but it will still be within another 3 weeks or so when we start getting closer to training camp. Right now, it's about August 21st. So when we get into September and start getting closer to where about training camp's going to start, then we're going to start getting into things, having different subjects, going to have different guests on to be able to talk about different things as pertaining to Warriors, maybe even other teams like the Miami Heat, the Sacramento Kings, which are, I have friends that I'm very close to, and they're some of their favorite teams. So I won't just talk about my team, even though it's the Warriors is Down One podcast. We'll be talking about everything NBA this season, and we're gonna have a blast, man. So just stay tuned, man. Always be on the lookout for these shows when I drop them. Yeah, man. Warrior Since 91 podcast. Thank you guys again for listening. I'll see you guys next time, man. Peace out. Deuces.